The 10,000 steps a day challenge is harder than you think. Did I actually achieve my goal? Kind of. I feel very fulfilled by achieving this goal. This small change in our behavior can have really big benefits. Life is not a 30-day challenge. Hi everyone, welcome back to the Always Active podcast, the show that empowers you to lead an active lifestyle. I'm your host Katie, and in this episode, I'll be sharing my experience completing the 10,000 steps a day challenge for 30 days, including strategies I used to reach my goal, my results, lessons learned, and more. To start off this episode, I'd like to share a quote that I learned back in my first year health and fitness course. This is not the first time I've shared one of these quotes, but clearly they've been very impactful for the way I view health and fitness. And that quote is, if a pill could be created that would provide you with all the same benefits as walking 30 minutes a day, it would be priceless. Walking is free and available today. The author of this quote is unknown. It might have been my prof. But the point of this quote is that there are so many benefits to daily movement. I've mentioned this a bunch. We're meant to move, and daily movement really is key. So it's no wonder that this 10,000 steps a day challenge has become so popular. Today, I'm going to share my experience with this challenge, and I will preface, I know this challenge might not be accessible for everyone, but I hope that my experience and key takeaways can still be helpful for you, regardless of your health and fitness goals and where you are on your fitness journey. So without further ado, let's get psyched to move. So to start off, I wanted to provide a little bit of an intro to the challenge in case you haven't heard of it before. And the challenge is simply to walk 10,000 steps per day. And in my case, I followed this for 30 days. This challenge comes from a marketing campaign in Japan in the 1960s for a step counter. And there really was no scientific backing behind this at the time. It was just a catchy and simple way to market their product. And 10,000 steps a day was something that was seen as healthy and achievable for most people to complete. I was interested to take a look at how many steps a day the average person gets, but I couldn't really find a good answer to this. Every source I came across said something different, but generally it seems that on average, people are walking well under 10,000 steps a day. Now, since that original marketing campaign, this idea that you should be walking 10,000 steps a day has become quite popular. And there has been a lot of research to investigate whether walking 10,000 steps a day is actually worth it. Time and time again, it has been shown that there are many benefits to walking 10,000 steps a day, including improved sleep, mood, energy, and concentration, stronger bones, burning calories, reducing your risk of heart disease, and lowering your blood pressure, just to name a few of the different benefits. These are the benefits that I've mentioned several times before of exercise kind of generally, but it's also associated with walking 10,000 steps a day. If you're interested in learning about more of the benefits of exercise, be sure to listen to episode 5. All in all, this small change in our behavior by increasing the number of steps that we walk a day can have really big benefits for our physical and mental health. Generally speaking, it's recommended that more is better when it comes to how many steps a day is good for you. So if you're currently walking 5,000 steps a day, for example, and you increase to 7,000 steps a day, that would lead to you experiencing more benefits. But more is better only up to a certain point, because there is a limit. Anything in excess is not beneficial, and too much walking can lead to issues like injury or fatigue. So be sure to listen to your body and don't overdo it if you are interested in trying out this challenge. Also recognize that this is not a one-size-fits-all approach. These are very general recommendations, and the optimal number of steps for you will vary based on your fitness level, walking experience, your health goals, your physical abilities, and whether you have any health conditions. For some people, fewer steps can provide benefits, whereas for other people, more steps would be more beneficial. And in other cases, maybe a walking goal should be avoided completely, and instead you can set other goals to increase your daily movement. So that was a little bit of a background on the challenge. Now I'll dive into my motivation behind completing this challenge. So At the time of starting the challenge, I wasn't being very active aside from my daily workouts. I hadn't really been going on very many intentional walks, especially compared to how much I used to do this. And I was also in a little bit of a slump after quitting the gym program that I had been following for about a month. And just for some added context, if you're not already aware, I am a full-time student and I pretty much entirely work from home, and I just sit at my desk all day, every day working. So there was definitely lots of room for improvement in terms of increasing my daily movement. Another reason why I decided to take on this challenge was because I am motivated by challenges. I figured it would be a great way to motivate myself for 30 days. I had never done something like this before, and I wanted to try something new that was relatively easy and also take advantage of the summer weather. So overall, my goal was to increase my daily activity and to stick to the challenge for 30 days. I was committed to doing this. And I went into it with a very positive mindset. I knew I wanted to stay disciplined, but I also wanted to take an approach where there was no guilt and I gave myself grace because inevitably I knew that life would happen. In terms of preparing for this challenge, there was very minimal prep involved. I kind of just got the idea one day, put a reminder in my to-do list to charge my Fitbit, and then just started the next day. The Fitbit that I use to track my steps is the Fitbit Luxe. I purchased this 2 years ago, and at the time it was $130 Canadian. I did check and it's currently going for $170. So I'd say it's kind of a mid-range price point for a smartwatch. I personally would recommend it. It's super simple. It doesn't have a ton of advanced functions, but it does give me everything I need in terms of counting my steps, distance walked, tracking my sleep, and measuring my heart rate. If you are in the market for a smartwatch, there are obviously more and less expensive, more and less sophisticated versions based on your budget and the different features that you would like the watch to have. Another thing is my Fitbit syncs with the Fitbit app on my phone. And so this is where I can visualize my data. The screen on the watch is pretty small, so I don't really get a ton of information. But when I open my phone, it'll show me my number of steps, the distance I walked, my heart rate, my workout tracker, and more. The only other thing to mention in terms of my preparation for the challenge was the systems that I put into place in order to hit my daily step goal. So I used the 3-step process that I always promote, which involves goal setting, planning, and tracking my progress. So I set my goal to hit 10,000 steps a day for 30 days. I planned this out by scheduling 2 30-minute walks in my Google Calendar and to-do list each day, and I tracked my progress by using the Fitbit app because it has a built-in habit tracker, and I also kept a daily journal to take notes to help me with outlining this episode. So that was everything in terms of the preparation. Now, how did I actually hit 10,000 steps a day? What strategies did I use to incorporate more walking into my routine? The main way I got my steps was obviously by walking. I did lots of walks over the 30 days and lots of different types of walks. So some short walks, some long, some slower walks, and some at a faster pace. I did walks at all different times of day, morning, afternoon, and evening, and I did both indoor and outdoor walks. The indoor walks were mainly on my treadmill. This is something that I purchased during lockdown, and honestly, it was pricey at the time, but this has been one of my best purchases ever. I definitely prefer outdoor over indoor walks from a mood boosting perspective, but indoor walks are super convenient, and I especially like using my treadmill in the winter when it's not nice outside. The other way that I hit my 10,000 steps a day was by doing workouts. So I would do a workout and as a byproduct accumulate steps. One type of workout would be running workouts. In general, I haven't done a ton of running over the past couple years, but because I did just sign up for High Rocks about halfway through the challenge, I've started to incorporate more running into my routine. And obviously, I found that running takes less time versus walking. So if I am in a pinch, running was a more efficient strategy to get my steps in. Another type of workout would be cardio workouts. So anything that involves some sort of aerobic activity, including home workouts. I found that this would get my steps up simply by doing lots of movement and jumping during the workout. And actually, I learned this after the challenge was over, but there are 10,000 steps a day home workout videos. So if you want to get your 10,000 steps a day and don't necessarily want to go out for a walk, just search up one of those videos on YouTube. There's a ton of them, and it will help you to accumulate your 10,000 steps. And then the other type of workouts that I did were gym workouts. In these cases, I didn't necessarily get a ton of steps through the workout themselves, but I did get steps in as a byproduct of completing my workout. So this kind of transitions into the next way that I hit my steps, which was through multitasking workouts. This is something that I mentioned back in episode 9, which was how to work out when you have no time. But essentially, multitasking workouts are when you do multiple activities at the same time, including something you need or want to do, and then you combine it with exercise. This is a great way to increase your NEAT, or non-exercise activity thermogenesis, which is the energy we expend throughout the day other than sleeping, eating, and structured exercise. And NEAT is a really big component of where my steps came from. So I took my own advice from episode 9, and I did lots of different multitasking workouts. So in this way, I combined walking with all these different activities. So walking and taking a phone call, doing household chores, getting from point A to point B by walking instead of driving somewhere. For example, one weekend I went to my friend's cottage during the challenge, and instead of taking a golf cart to get to the beach, I asked a couple of my other friends if they wanted to walk to the beach instead, and that helped me to get my steps up. I also combined walking with working, so I used my treadmill as a standing desk and completed work on my computer while getting some steps in. Other ways that I multitasked were by combining walking with waiting for my food to cook, so I would pace around the kitchen while waiting for it to cook. Brushing my teeth, again, just pacing around and getting some steps in for the 2 minutes where I brush my teeth during the day. Watching YouTube videos or TV, socializing, so planning walks around hanging out with my friends, and also running errands. I would get steps in as a byproduct. And then the final way that I hit my 10,000 steps a day was by making my day harder. So again, these are other ways that you can increase your NEAT and things that I mentioned back in episode 9, but examples of ways to do this would be taking the stairs instead of an elevator or escalator. For example, I went to a baseball game during the challenge, and on my way there were many opportunities to take an escalator, but instead I chose to take the stairs to increase my steps. And another strategy would be parking further away from the store. This is something I kind of always do by default because I'm not the best at parking, but it also helps me to get a couple extra steps in throughout the day. So these are the main ways that I got my steps, and every single day was very different, depending on whether it was a work day or if it was a weekend, whether I had social plans going on or not. Every day was different, but all in all, this kind of encompasses all of the different ways that I accumulated my steps. Now, the challenge was not all rainbows and butterflies. I did face some challenges along the way. The first one would be bad weather. Yes, I completed the challenge during the summer, but the weather has been super hit or miss, and so my solution for this was going for indoor walks on the treadmill on days when it was cold or rainy or too hot to go for a walk outside. If you don't have access to your own treadmill, you could also go for indoor walks at your gym, or even walking around the mall or an indoor track is an option too. Another challenge I faced was having busy work days. So I found it was difficult to get my steps in during the day, so my solution was that I had to do most of my steps in the evening. I did try to go for short walks during the day when possible, either in the morning or on my lunch break, but overall I found most of my steps would have been in the last part of the day in the evening. And then another challenge was just having a busy schedule in the summer. There's lots of social plans, there's a lot going on outside of work right now. And so my solution was that I needed to plan ahead on days where I knew I had a commitment or a plan in the evening. Another solution was that I often got steps as a byproduct of doing these activities. So if my plan was active, then I didn't necessarily have to intentionally get my steps in during the day because I knew I would get my steps in through the activity I was doing. Like I said, when I went to the baseball game, there were a ton of steps that I got simply by walking to the baseball game. And another example would be that cottage weekend. We had a beach day and we were just out and about all day. We went for a walk at sunset, and I accumulated my steps as a natural byproduct of the plans that I would be doing anyway. Another challenge that I faced was staying motivated for the entire duration of the 30-day challenge. But I would say I was pretty determined to achieve my goal, and I wanted to follow through on this commitment that I made to myself, Knowing that I would make this podcast episode also helped me to stay accountable because I wanted to complete the challenge for you so I could share my main takeaways from it. I also told my friends and family about my goal to help hold me accountable. Some other things that helped me stay motivated were knowing that I was experiencing so many benefits from walking 10,000 steps a day. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, it is very beneficial. I also made it fun and enjoyable by doing things like going for walks with friends or enjoying the summer weather by going for outdoor walks. It was also fulfilling to hit the 10K steps a day on my Fitbit. Every time I hit my goal, my watch would vibrate and play a little animation to celebrate that I had hit my goal. And also keeping my streak on the habit tracker in the Fitbit app was motivating. So as you can see, there were so many different things that kept me motivated, and I would say that these were really important for helping me to achieve my goal. Now on to the results. First, did I experience any physical benefits? I would say not really. It was only 30 days. At the end of the challenge, my weight and my resting heart rate stayed the same. Yeah, not too much to report in terms of the physical benefits, but I would also say that physical results weren't my main goal. In terms of the psychological benefits I experienced, there were a lot. The main benefit was just keeping the commitment to myself and accomplishing the goal that I set out to achieve. I feel very fulfilled by achieving this goal. It was something that was challenging, but it was doable. And then some other benefits were just getting back into my workout routine after experiencing a period of burnout. I got to spend time outdoors in the summer, and I also experienced an instant mood boost after every time I did a workout or an outdoor walk. In particular, I want to emphasize the outdoor walks were very mood boosting. I didn't really experience that mood boosting effect if I was just doing my multitasking workouts or if I was just doing an indoor treadmill walk. Doing an intentional high intensity workout or going for an intentional outdoor walk did help to elevate my mood in the short term. Now, the moment we've all been waiting for, did I actually achieve my goal? I think I kind of implied it throughout this already, but yes, I did. Kind of. So let's crunch some numbers here. Over the course of the 30 days, I walked 323,284 steps. So this averages out to 10,776 steps per day, which is great because that means that I averaged over 10,000 steps a day. But did I hit my 10,000 steps a day goal every single day? No, I didn't. Most days I hit around 10K. I hit over 10,000 steps a day on 23 days. I fell short on 7 days. And of these 7 days, I fell very short on 3 of them. So I'd say on those days I got maybe 5,000 steps. But then there were other days where I really exceeded the 10K goal, and so that made up for it. So all in all, this means I pretty much hit my goal almost every single day, and I averaged over 10,000 steps a day, so I consider that a win. This leads me into the lessons that I learned throughout this challenge. There are 11 lessons, and lesson number 1 is to be realistic and flexible. Life is not a 30-day challenge. Life happens, and circling back to some of the challenges I faced during these 30 days, living your life is more important than hitting your goal every single day. So here are some examples of where life happened during my challenge. I had my friend's engagement party and another friend's wedding, and I didn't want to wear my Fitbit to these events because obviously I didn't want to ruin my outfit. On the day of the engagement party, it was in the evening, so I made sure to leave the house with about 8,000 steps before taking off my Fitbit, and I probably accumulated the 2,000 at the event. But the wedding was a full day event, so I didn't wear the watch all day, and I just excluded this day from the challenge. So an example where I built in flexibility, I did end up just making it a 31-day challenge and removing that day entirely. But these are kind of once-in-a-lifetime events, and they're not a day-to-day occurrence. And for me, it was totally okay that my watch didn't pick up on the steps that I did on those 2 days. Another example of life happening was one night when John spontaneously asked me to go play pickleball. I mentioned this in the last episode, but I almost declined the invite because by that point in the day, I was really far off from achieving my steps. So I had planned that in the evening, I would do a treadmill walk to get my steps in. But instead, I just decided to go play pickleball with my friends instead of hitting my step goal. And I did get some steps as a byproduct, although that was one of my few days where I was very off from hitting the 10,000 steps. Continuing on with this first lesson, it's important to build in flexibility. Like I said, I didn't hit the 10,000 steps a day every single day, but I averaged over 10,000 steps a day across the 30 days. It's important to understand that daily challenges can be unrealistic. So instead, if you view challenges over a longer period of time, this helps to build in more flexibility, making it less rigid and more sustainable. So an example of this would be to average your steps over the 30 days like I did. Another example would be to aim to hit your goal every 6 out of 7 days. So giving yourself 1 day a week where you can fall short to build in that flexibility. Another important point is that some days will be more active and some days will be less active than others. On some days, you might not hit your step goal, and that's totally okay. Here's another example of a way that I built in flexibility through this challenge. On one day, I had already done a 1-hour gym workout, and I spent 1 hour at the driving range. And even after this, I was still very short of hitting my step goal because I didn't get a ton of steps in through either of those activities, and I was pretty sedentary working from home all day. But I had already spent 2 hours being active, and by the end of the day, I didn't have time or the energy to dedicate another hour to walking. So I just let it be. I fell very short that day, but it just helped me to acknowledge that it's unrealistic to hit your goal every single day. Another thing to keep in mind is don't obsess over hitting your goal. Yes, you can challenge yourself, but obsessing and being too extreme can be problematic. Instead, prioritize being mindful of your daily movement and aim to make time for walking to the best of your ability. My final point related to this lesson is that something is way better than nothing. Even if you can't hit 10,000 steps for whatever reason on a particular day, just try to do something because any movement is better than no movement, and small steps and gradual progress contribute to an overall healthy lifestyle. So this was a long first lesson, but I really wanted to bring this point home that it's important to be realistic and flexible when completing this kind of challenge, or any fitness challenge for that matter. Now, on the flip side, lesson number 2 is to know when to push yourself. I just talked your ear off about flexibility, but sometimes it makes sense to push ourselves, and this is all part of balance, which is sometimes overlooked. If we give ourselves too much grace, then we'll never really accomplish anything. So we need to recognize when we're capable of doing more and then challenge ourselves because that's how we're going to reach our goals. For example, there was one day where near the end of the day, I did push myself to do that 1-hour walk later in the evening because I knew I could get my steps in and reach my goal. And on that particular day, pushing myself was more important than just chilling out and watching TV in the evening. Versus the day that I just mentioned, where I'd already done 2 hours of activity and it didn't make sense to spend another hour walking on the treadmill. So in some cases, it does make sense to push yourself. And over time, you'll learn the difference between when it makes sense to build in flexibility and be realistic, and other times when it makes more sense to challenge yourself and push your limits because you can do hard things. Lesson number 3, I learned that on average, it takes about 10 minutes to walk 1,000 steps, which I didn't know before, and this was interesting to learn. I found it was a useful benchmark because then I was able to gauge, okay, I just need to spend this much more time in order to hit my step goal for the day. Another pattern that I identified pretty early on was as long as I carved out an hour to walk in my day, I would probably end up hitting my goal as a byproduct through my other daily activities. So generally, I would get my 6,000 steps in through an intentional walk, and then the remaining 4,000 steps would just accumulate through daily activities. And I use this information to help plan my days and hit my goal. Lesson number 4 is that the 10,000 steps a day challenge is harder than you think, and it requires intentional effort. Like I said, I needed to plan ahead. I needed to intentionally carve out 1 hour a day in order to hit my goal. And this was especially difficult on days when I worked from home, so every day, Monday to Friday, and days when I had plans in the evening because I needed to get my steps in early, like I mentioned before. So as much as it seems like it's an easy challenge, it's not as easy as it sounds. Lesson number 5 is on some days it comes easy. So this is the reverse of what I just mentioned. And on some days you kind of just get your steps as a byproduct of your day-to-day life and it feels more effortless. So some examples I gave already were the day that I went to the baseball game, the beach day that I had at my friend's cottage, going to my friend's wedding. And another example, I went to watch fireworks on Canada Day with John's family, and we just did a spontaneous soccer game in the park and got steps as a total byproduct that I had never planned on getting in the first place. So these were all social events where I wasn't focused on getting in steps, but they just kind of naturally accumulated. So lessons 4 and 5 go hand in hand. Sometimes it's harder, some days it comes easy, and that's something that you'll learn through completing this challenge. Lesson number 6 is to track your progress. I find that using a fitness tracker is super motivating. You can use a smartwatch, a phone, an app, or even an old-fashioned step counter. These tools will tell you the number of steps that you're taking and the distance that you're traveling per day, and it helps you to be aware of how much you're actually moving each day. They are pretty accurate, but I would say take the absolute numbers with a grain of salt. Instead, you can look at the relative numbers and compare how many steps you're doing a day in comparison to other days. And I do find that my Fitbit is my secret weapon to get me out of a slump. I don't wear it all the time. In fact, most of the time during the year, I don't wear it, but I do wear it when I need that extra boost of motivation because that's the secret ingredient to get me out of my period of burnout. Lesson number 7 is to set up your environment for success. Create an environment that supports your step goal and makes it easy. So for example, you could get a treadmill desk or a walking pad in a standing desk. So that way it's easy to get your steps in while you're working. You could set reminders on your phone or your watch to get steps in throughout the day. You can lay out your workout clothes and shoes ahead of time so that way it's easy to put them on as soon as you need to go for a walk. And you can also plan out activities in advance that involve walking so that way you just show up to these activities and get your steps in. Lesson number 8 is to incorporate movement all throughout the day, because this is going to help you accumulate steps and prevent you from rushing at the end of the day. Try to break up your steps into shorter segments throughout the day rather than needing to fit them all in at the end of the day, or rather than needing to dedicate a whole uninterrupted hour to getting your steps in. Finding small ways to increase your NEAT into your daily routine is also very helpful. I would say that I tried my best to get morning walks in throughout the challenge, and when I did do this, it started my day off right, and I wish that I did do more morning walks. The evening walks were also nice, but I like these the best when they were just short walks after dinner for about 15 to 20 minutes and just topping off my steps for the day. But a challenge that I had was that I often had to do my evening walks because I didn't hit my steps earlier in the day, and I was doing treadmill walks just for the sake of hitting my goal, which weren't quite as enjoyable. Something else I wanted to mention here is that yes, you should try to incorporate your movement throughout the day, but in some cases it is possible to hit your goal at night, even if you had a very sedentary day. So for example, on one day, by 4:30 p.m., I had hit less than 1,000 steps, but then I ended up hitting 16,000 steps that day by the end of the day because I did a 2.5-hour workout doing a high rocks trial for the first time, which meant running 8 kilometers and completing 8 functional workouts. So that is kind of an exception to the rule, but generally speaking, try to incorporate your movement all throughout the day. It'll make it a lot easier and more sustainable. Lesson number 9 is to make it enjoyable. There are so many different ways that you can make getting your steps in a fun and enjoyable experience. You might want to listen to music or a podcast when you're going for a walk. This is something I almost always do when I'm walking by myself. Or you might want to schedule social plans around doing your walks with friends or family. This is something I've been doing for the past several years, and I find it's a really fun way to spend time with others and then kind of just get my steps in as a byproduct. So I encourage you to suggest this to someone for the next time you want to get together with them. For example, I encouraged my parents to come on walks with me, and I wish I did more walks with friends during the course of the challenge. I surprisingly only went for 2 walks with my friends, but this is something I want to incorporate more of going forward. Another way to make walking enjoyable is to go for outdoor walks. Take advantage of the summer weather because it is super enjoyable to go for a walk outdoors. It's a nice mood booster, and this is something I absolutely need to continue doing after the challenge. Something I wish I did too would have been to go on some hikes. I can't believe I didn't do any hikes over the 30 days, so this is definitely my reminder to myself to do more hikes during the rest of the summer. And then some other fun activities I did where I got my steps in were swimming, shopping at the mall, playing pickleball, I actually found that I got way more steps in playing singles versus doubles for pickleball. And then playing soccer, I have my weekly games and practices, and I got tons of steps in playing soccer. Again, that's an activity that I just do for the sake of enjoying it and having fun, and the steps just come as a byproduct. Lesson number 9 is to have accountability. This helps to motivate you. Other people can support you and hold you accountable. You can ask your friends or family to hold you accountable, or you can join some kind of group challenge. For example, on that cottage weekend, I told my friends at the cottage about my step goal, and they helped to hold me accountable, and we ended up going for a sunset walk together. Like I said before, we walked to the beach instead of taking the golf cart, and that was a great way to help me to get my steps in and to feel less alone in this challenge. And the final lesson, lesson number 11, is that simply hitting 10,000 steps a day does not mean you'll achieve the physical activity guidelines. And the guidelines, which I've mentioned before, are 150 minutes of moderate to vigorous aerobic activity per week. So I was really surprised by this because I did think that if I was doing 70,000 steps a week, then I would be hitting this 150 minutes a week. But I ended up learning through this challenge that that's not the case, and I learned that it's important to do other activities too at higher intensities aside from just walking, and this has motivated me for a future challenge, which I will be talking about in another episode. So after completing this challenge, after learning these lessons, do I recommend that you complete this challenge too? I would say yes. If this is something you're able to do and you think you would be motivated to do it, I would definitely recommend that you try it out for yourself. Do I think everyone should track their steps? I think it can be beneficial for a short period of time. I don't recommend that this should be a long-term or obsessive thing. And I would say to use the measurement tool that works best for you, whether it's going out and buying a smartwatch or it's just using your phone and getting a general idea of the steps that you're doing. But if you are tracking for a short time, this can help you to pick up on some patterns and overall just increase your daily movement over time. Now, how many steps do I recommend that you should actually aim to hit? I would say it depends. 10,000 steps, like I said before, is not a magic number. Yes, it's associated with benefits, but it was kind of originally chosen arbitrarily. So if 10,000 steps seems like it's something that's unattainable for you right now, just aim to increase your current daily steps by 2,000 steps beyond what you currently do. And then you can gradually work your way up to the 10,000 steps a day goal. These are small improvements, but they will absolutely be worthwhile. My overall key takeaway recommendation is to simply set a goal to increase your daily movement. This could be a step challenge, or it could be another form of movement. It could be 10,000 steps a day or another number of steps. It could be a 30-day challenge or shorter or longer. Just make this goal fit your needs and preferences and aim to increase your daily movement. And when you are setting this personal goal, be sure to refer to episode 11 of the podcast for some goal setting tips. Now that I've completed this challenge, my plan going forward is to carry these lessons that I learned with me, and I intend to maintain some of the things that I developed during this challenge going forward. So as of the last day of the challenge, I took off my Fitbit, so I'm not wearing it anymore, but I would like to maintain going for regular walks, ideally continuing to do an hour of walking, but to be honest, I've already fallen off of this, and I have found that ever since stopping the challenge, I haven't been motivated to go for a walk for an hour every day, so this may mean I need to set a new challenge for myself so that I can stay motivated. Something that I don't think I'll continue to do is my walking on the treadmill and working at the same time. I found that I just didn't enjoy that. I wasn't really getting the mood boosting benefits from walking on the treadmill, and then it's kind of hard to work on the computer while walking at the same time, even though it was a very low speed, but I just didn't find myself getting motivated to do that, so I don't think I'll continue to do it. But I maybe would invest in a standing desk because I think it could be beneficial to stand more throughout the day. Now, things that I want to incorporate more of would be going for walks with friends, planning social events around walking, going for more hikes because I did no hikes during the challenge, going for more outdoor walks. On days when it's nice, I definitely need to take advantage of the weather. Going for more morning walks and starting my day off right by getting a walk in. And I'm also going to incorporate more running as I prepare to train for the High Rocks Challenge coming up. And in terms of my next challenge that I'm working toward, it is training for that High Rocks competition. And I think that's going to motivate me to, like I said, run more, train in a different, more functional way, and just stay motivated following the end of this challenge. For today's Psych Spotlight, I wanted to share a study that compared 2 different walking programs. The first walking program was just a standard program that included very basic resources like access to a website. The participants received email reminders, and there were flyers put up in their office to remind them to complete the daily step challenge. The other program was an enhanced walking program. So this included the same basic resources, but then it also included bonus incentives. So participants received tokens for every 10,000 steps that they reached that they could then trade in for prizes. They got to participate in walking competitions, attend wellness workshops where they learned about tips for setting walking goals and overcoming barriers. They also received walking maps, and they received feedback on the distance that they were walking. So obviously, this enhanced walking program had way more supports and way more ways to motivate the participants to maintain this 10,000 steps a day challenge. The results were that first, participants in the enhanced program averaged about 1,000 more steps a day compared to participants in the standard program, which makes sense because they had all of these additional incentives to get them to walk more. But interestingly, participants in both programs who stayed until the very end averaged around 10,000 steps a day. So whether they were in the standard program or the enhanced program, they were quite close to this 10,000 steps a day mark, ranging from about 8,000 to 9,000 steps. Another main takeaway was that higher step counts were associated with greater improvements in mood, energy, overall health, and weight loss. So the more the participants walked, the more they experienced these benefits. So what does this mean for us? What can we take away from this study? Like I mentioned already, walking 10,000 steps a day is very beneficial for improving our physical and mental health. And the other main takeaway is that we can apply the strategies from that enhanced program to boost our own motivation. So we can give ourselves incentives and rewards for completing 10,000 steps a day. We can participate in walking competitions. There are lots of apps, different groups on social media where you can participate in these walking challenges in a competitive way. Another thing is to take advantage of educational resources that can help you with setting goals and overcoming barriers, like listening to this podcast. Tracking your progress is also super important. With the Fitbit, that's a built-in way to track your progress because it converts directly to the app. And another way to boost your motivation is by joining an organized walking group. So find a walking group in your community or schedule regular walks with a friend or family member, and that can help you to stay accountable and stay motivated to hit this 10,000 steps a day challenge. This episode's movement mindset is to believe in yourself. This mindset comes from an experience that I had last week where I went to a new fitness class with my friend. And if you've ever been to a group fitness class, you know that they're high intensity, there's a lot going on, and they can be intimidating, confusing, and unfamiliar the first time that you try them. But we both showed up and we did it together, and we believed in our ability to complete it. Related to this, we also signed up for the High Rocks competition together, and we were a little bit intimidated at first. We weren't sure if we wanted to sign up, but we convinced each other to go for it and ultimately signed up. And we did a trial run a couple weeks ago. We took a long time, we took a lot of breaks, we didn't use the regulation weights, but we believed in ourselves and completed the trial successfully, doing all 8 functional movements, running all 8 kilometers, and we were successful in our own way. Through these experiences, my friend said something that I thought was really insightful, and that was, there's something to be said for being able to walk into any fitness class or challenge and know you're capable of completing it. And I thought that was so positive and motivating. Yes, obviously, we're both confident and experienced, which helps us to believe this mantra, but the key takeaway for everyone is to believe in yourself. You're capable of trying new things. You're capable of doing hard things. Embrace challenges. Embrace being a beginner, like I mentioned in a previous movement mindset, and be confident in yourself. Trust in your ability to succeed, even if success looks different for you. You can do it, you've got this, and you can take on any challenge that you put your mind to. Wrapping up with our community responses, I asked you over on Instagram at all.ways.active, what is your daily step goal? 44% of you said you don't have a step goal, 31% said 10,000 steps a day, 19% said more than 10,000 steps a day, and 6% said less than 10,000 steps a day. So for those of you who don't have a step goal, maybe this episode inspired you to take on this challenge going forward. For those of you who said 10,000 steps a day, that is a nice standard goal, a nice round number, and that was my goal during the challenge. We have some of you who are overachievers who are hitting more than 10,000 steps a day, which is great. And for anyone who has a goal that's less than 10,000 steps a day, it may be a lower goal, but it is still a goal, and that's what counts. And you can work your way up toward gradually increasing this goal with time. The next question was, how challenging do you find it to hit 10,000 steps a day? And you could answer this on a scale ranging from very easy to very challenging. The average response was right in the middle, with some on the low end, some on the high end, and some in the middle. I probably land somewhere in the middle in terms of finding hitting 10,000 steps a day somewhat challenging, because it wasn't easy, but it was doable if I put in intentional effort. And I actually got a response on this story in particular, and someone said, with a job that keeps me sitting at a desk all day, I wish I could be hitting 10,000 steps a day. And I can completely relate to this. Having a sedentary job definitely makes it more difficult to hit this goal. So I hope the strategies that I shared and the lessons that I learned can help you to incorporate more daily movement into your routine. Even if you are sitting at a desk all day, you can make it happen, and you can make it feel a little bit easier to hit 10,000 steps a day. The next question was, do you track your steps regularly? 64% of you said yes with a smartwatch, so most of you do. 7% of you said yes with a phone, so some of you use a phone instead of a watch. Most phones have this feature built in, and it can be helpful to show you your trends in the number of steps you're doing, but it's just a little bit less accurate than a smartwatch. None of you said that you track your steps with a pedometer, so none of you are using that old school method. And 29% of you said, no, I don't track my steps. So some of you don't track, and like I said before, now that the challenge is over, I won't be tracking my steps either. The last questions I asked were some open responses. So the first was, what strategies do you use to increase your daily movement? One of you said, take the stairs instead of the escalator. Yes, this is such an underrated thing that makes a huge difference if you're able to, and it's just that small thing that's helping to make your day harder and increase your NEAT. One of you said, moving as much as you can, parking farther away, taking the stairs, etc. And I agree, again, making your day harder in small ways can really make all the difference. And then one of you said, do a workout or activity every day and midday walks if I can. Yes, I agree with this too. The daily workout plus going for a walk combination is definitely what helped me to achieve my goal during the challenge. And then the last question I asked was, what questions do you have about how to reach 10,000 steps a day? And one of you asked, did you find that you had to do a lot of intentional walking to hit the goal? Yes, I needed to intentionally spend an hour walking, and then I would usually get the rest of my steps in as a byproduct of daily activities, but I needed to be intentional for sure. I wasn't just going to get 10,000 steps without trying. So those were all the questions I shared on the podcast page. I also shared some bonus questions over on my personal page at k.d.active, and I got lots of responses here. So you seem to like these questions, and I'll share more of these kinds of questions going forward. These were just this or that questions asking you about different types of walks that you prefer. So the first was short walks or long walks. 68% of you said long walks and 32% said short walks. I'm the same way. I usually prefer long walks just to enjoy them and take it easy, but short walks I would do when I'm in a little bit of a pinch. The next, indoor walks versus outdoor walks. 93% of you said outdoor walks, so outdoor walks won by a landslide, and 7% said indoor walks. So some of you do like indoor walks as well. I would say I also prefer outdoor, but I did find myself doing a lot of indoor walks during the challenge just for convenience and time reasons. The next one was slow walks or fast walks. 67% of you said fast walks and 33% said slow walks. I actually fall in the lower response option this time because I prefer walking slower. It's just more relaxing. The next question was morning walks or evening walks. 65% of you said evening walks and 35% of you said morning walks. As much as I want to be a morning walk girly, I just find that evening walks are more convenient and more comfortable, especially in the summer because it is pretty hot during the middle of the day. And then the last one was solo walks or social walks. 62% of you said social walks and 38% of you said solo walks. I definitely like solo walks too, but social walks are more fun. Thank you for listening to today's episode. I hope you learned something new from my experience completing the 10,000 steps a day challenge, and I encourage you to try out this challenge for yourself or set another personally meaningful challenge that will help you to increase your daily movement. Please remember to follow this podcast on whatever platform you're listening. I would also really appreciate if you could please leave a 5-star review because this helps to get this podcast to more people and continue to build our community. I'm so grateful for all of the support that you've already shown, and I'm so excited to see where this podcast will continue to grow. Please also let me know what topics you would like me to talk about next, and I'll be sure to create episodes based on the things that you want to hear more about. So with that being said, I will talk to you in the next episode. Bye, everyone. Thank you for listening to today's episode of the Always Active podcast. Remember to subscribe to this podcast, and I would be grateful if you could please leave a review. Also, be sure to follow the podcast on Instagram at all.ways.active so that your responses can be featured in future episodes. See you next time.